Today, I am super excited to talk about the topic that we have for you, as well as my special guest. Um, One of the biggest challenges that nonprofit leaders claim is, and I'll quote, "We're doing incredible work, but we're struggling to secure the funding needed to sustain and grow our impact." Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Elevate Your Impact series, where we connect nonprofit leaders with resources. I'm Jamila Robinson, your host, and also the founder of Elevate Your Impact, where we help nonprofits share their stories online through digital marketing. And today, I am super excited to talk about the topic that we have for you, as well as my special guest. Um, One of the biggest challenges that nonprofit leaders claim is, and I'll quote, "We're doing incredible work, but we're struggling to secure the funding needed to sustain and grow our impact." Well, the truth is, friends, that success doesn't start with just securing the actual grant. There's a process, there's governance, there's leadership and processes that you need to have in place to even be grant ready. And so we'll be talking about grant readiness with none other than Patrina Pelton-Smith, the founder and CEO of the Business of Charity. And she's going to prepare you for some things that you probably haven't even thought of. So thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you so much for having me. I appreciate it. When you and I connected a few months ago, I was
Yes.
so amazed because this is the space that I like to work in,
Yes.
working with nonprofits that are adolescent and startups, helping them get grant ready. Because my goal is ultimately that you won't need me forever. You just need me for a
Right.
little bit of time. So
Right.
thank you
And
for having me.
as a new nonprofit leader, Patrina, we need people like you that enjoy helping people like me.
And that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get started. For those of you that don't know the Business of Charity, you mind telling us a little bit how you got started in that field and what
Yes.
inspired you to help
Oh,
us?
wow. Okay, so I'll keep it short
Okay.
because my origin story can go on for a moment. But so the Business of Charity is a consultancy focused on nonprofits and small businesses to provide grant writing, formation services, and capacity building. Our key goal is to make sure that you are fundable and sustainable. How I got started in this work, I
Yes.
was a nonprofit leader,
Okay.
just like all of
Say
you
more. I
all.
didn't know you were a nonprofit
Oh,
leader.
yeah. So I was the CEO of New Horizon Family Center in Baytown, Texas.
Okay.
It was a domestic violence and sexual assault agency. Notice I said was.
Mm.
So after working there, I came in and it was the Titanic when I came in. I
Okay.
just didn't know it.
Yeah.
I knew that there were some things that were shifting for them and had shifted, which started when not purchased, they were granted a shelter.
Okay.
And when they were granted a shelter, went from being a 4-bedroom house to being a 10,000 square foot facility that goes with all the costs with that. So I was not there. I'd
Mm.
worked for them as a legal advocate and director of non residential services, but I left during the 2-year period while the shelter was being built. And they were looking for their third ED in 2 years. And
Wow.
why God led me to go back, I have no clue. But anyway, it leads me to where I am today.
Uh-huh.
So after about 5 years there, we
Yes.
just did not have the funds in the bank because most people don't know grants are, for most part, reimbursement, especially if they're government grants. That means you
Oh.
have to have the money up front to operate.
Wow.
And so those were just several things that led to the organization closing. So after it closed, nobody wanted to hire me to work for them. No one. I just wanted to be a case manager. And I
Mm.
literally had one executive director. I will leave her unnamed, but she came to me. She said, I was applying to be a part time grant writer. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, you will want my job. She's like, I've seen everything on the news. I know who you are. She's like, and I was like, and I don't want your job. I don't want to do any more fundraising. I just want to take care of my own money at this point. And she
Yes.
was like, nope. She's like, I can't hire you. You're going to want my job. So I had a car, I had a house, I had a child who was 14 at that time.
Oh my.
Um,
All of
and
that equals money. Yes.
and so I started the business of charity, and just literally started posting, I'll write grants for you. And people would come to me and I go, okay, great. Send me, your IRS statement, your board roster, your budgets, all those things that you need when you're writing grants. And they
Mhm.
would go, what's that?
Oh my.
And so at that point, I recognized not only am I going to be a grant writer, but I'm also going to be an educational consultant. And so
Yes.
that's how we have arrived at this space and time. Because my whole goal is for everyone to have a seat at the table,
Hmm.
and get access to funding that otherwise they may not have access or even know that they have access to.
I love that story. You probably didn't like the situations God was putting you
Absolutely, I
in
did
to
not.
get to this
Absolutely, I did not.
place. He closed all the doors on you so
And he
that you
warned
could
me
go
that
down that one
he warned
path.
me, and
Yeah.
had I been a little bit more obedient, that's a whole different story. But
Okay.
maybe I
Well,
would not have had some of the
the
places that I
challenges.
went to. I'm now more obedient. When he say go
Yes.
left, I go
You don't
left.
even ask any
I
questions
don't. I
anymore,
don't.
do
No, I
you?
still ask a
I,
couple of questions.
I'm
He's
at the
still
point of
working on
no
me.
questions.
He's still working on me on that. So pray for me.
I
But
will.
but yes, now I've gotten to that point where if he says do this, I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is the
on
next
some
journey.
things. On something, I'm like, God, really? But yeah, so some doors did close,
Yes.
for me to be funneled in this direction. And now, yes, so I work with clients. I am faith forward, and so for my clients that appreciate that, that's just a bonus. You get me praying for you from the very beginning of our
I love
connections.
that. I love that.
Yeah,
And we're glad that you're here. You've worked with a lot of nonprofits over
I
the
have.
years.
Hmm.
Um, in your opinion, what is the biggest myth that they come to you with or that you see the most?
That there are grants lying on the ground, literally, and they just have to apply.
Just need to pick them up.
Yeah,
Okay.
they just have to apply. That is the biggest myth is out there. Grants are competitive, and even more so now than probably even in the last 10 years. I just see that increasing because, to be frank, now you have larger organizations that were receiving government funding, such as SCORE, such
Yes.
as, oh, what's the other government entity? What was it? NPR.
Hmm.
They actually closed because they had no funding. So now the smaller nonprofit, my startup nonprofits, are now competing with those
The bigger
larger
ones.
entities that
Yes.
have the structure, that have the foundation. And so that means that I've been saying for several years now, probably about 5, gone are the days when I might write you a grant the first time through and you're funded.
Hmm.
Usually we're seeing that be 2 to 3 cycles. And so you have to be patient, to go through the cycle. And you have to be patient if you're working with a grant writer, and be prepared because we're not miracle workers. I don't have
That's
I'm
right.
not Genie. I can't rub, anybody's belly, blink, nod my head. It's not going to happen just
Right.
because I wish for it. And the other thing that's coming through is that they want to see that the foundation is in place. There was a little bit more leeway, particularly with government grants, because I'm actually a government grant specialist. Didn't know
Hmm.
that was a thing until I started working with my other peers who are only out there writing primarily foundation grants.
Yes.
And so I've had a lot of success with my clients getting government grants the first time through, and also had success with clients who weren't completely grant ready getting a grant, and we work on their grant readiness as we are going through their process. Now
Mm.
the government grants have arrived at the place where they too are looking at grant readiness, and so now I'm not presenting any organization to any funder unless they
They're really
have
great
that
ready.
foundation in place. Because think
Yeah.
about it like an introduction.
Hmm.
We're going to write a grant, and let's say you're not quite grant ready, and we say that, and the funder sees it, and we don't have to say it, but they're going to hear it in when we use the different terms and systems, and they don't hear a specific system being in place like QuickBooks.
Hmm.
They're going to say, oh, they're not quite grant ready. And so with that being the case, now they're just Xing you out. I had that happen a couple of years ago to a client. We said that they weren't quite grant ready because they did not have QuickBooks at that time.
Hmm.
But they had an amazing accountant who was doing really great work using Excel spreadsheets.
Hmm.
And they came back and said no to them. And they went through the cycle and the process for that particular grant, which involves a committee and review and scoring and all of that. The next year, she applied on her own. And I didn't realize it until late in the game, like literally the day of. She was like, "Can you read this?" And I'm like, "This is due at 5 o'clock." So I did do some reading and some editing, and we did get it in by 5 o'clock. And do you know they immediately said no to her? She didn't go through the process.
I was about to ask, when you apply
Mhm.
as if you are grant ready, what does that do to your credibility?
Exactly. And so from that point on, and at this point, yeah, and we did ask, we were like, "Okay, look, why are you denying them?" Crickets. No response, nothing. So now we have nothing to go on as to
Hmm.
what can we fix
Right.
before we apply for this grant a third time. And at this point, she's kind of like, I don't think I'm going to, waste any more time and money on this.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's it. You want to make sure you have that credibility, because it's like a introduction. So if I introduce you on your worst day to someone brand new, and unfortunately, what are they going to remember? That they met you. They may not know it's your worst day, but they
Right. They're
remember
going to
how
remember
you
the messiness
behaved
of that day.
on that day. And
Yes.
you're going to have to fix that going into the situation again. And so, same thing with grant writing. You just don't want to throw something out there and see if it's going to stick. You want to make sure it's a good product.
I agree. That segues perfectly into our next
Mm-hmm.
question. But first, I want to inform the audience that you are going to be our featured guest at our next
Woohoo!
Thursday Think and Thrive. That's right. We've switched days from Sunday to Thursday. This one's going to be August 20th at the Impact Hub. So you don't want to miss this one. Mark your calendar so you can learn how to be grant ready. But the title of your presentation that day is the cost of being unprepared. A little bit about what we just talked about.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
what does it truly mean to be grant ready?
So to be grant ready means that you have that infrastructure in place, not only for today, not just to write the grant. You've got a grant writer in place who's writing, how to research grants, how to read the RFPs, but you also have to have their background language in place. So
Mm,
do you have enough board members? Because sometimes your roster says that you have three and they're looking for five, and they don't tell you that. One
right.
organization did tell one of my clients that, and so we were able to, increase that. But enough board members? Do you have in place QuickBooks or some type of accounting system that breaks it down by classes? So let me stress that, because there are many accounting systems out there, but you wanted to have the ability to break it down by classes, because every grant is a class. I just had that conversation today. And then the other piece of it is, are you audit or audited? Do you have audited financial statements?
Mm-hmm.
So, those are things that the funders are looking for. And if you don't have those things in place, I don't want to waste time and resources by applying to an organization
That's
that
very
says
true.
they're looking for something very specific and we don't have that thing. Now, granted, sometimes they're little funders, sometimes maybe a little flexible, particularly on the private foundation side, not the government side. But they may give you some leeway and say, okay, instead of audited financials, we'll take your 990
Mm-hmm.
EZ, not your 990N, your EZ. So those are things that you need to, have in place. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why am I paying for a 990 EZ if I don't have that $50,000 threshold? Well, because a funder can see what you're doing with
Yeah.
$10,000 versus a 990N that they have
They don't see
no
anything.
visibility.
Yeah,
Right.
not even a dollar amount.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of the grant readiness is a lot of the things that you need to be using anyways to run your not-for-profit business. Because friends, we
Absolutely.
have to remember this is a
The
business, a
business of
not for
charity. That's why I
yes.
named my company
It is a
that.
not-for-profit business. And so these are systems and processes that you should already have in place so
Absolutely.
that you can be accountable for
Hmm.
how you spend the funding.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
that's how I named my company, because I was like, you are a
Well, that was
Texas
smart.
nonprofit corporation. I need you to behave like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
We're an entity. So you often talk about organizational capacity.
Yes.
Beyond writing grants, what are some foundational pieces every nonprofit should have in place before pursuing the funding?
So I know this seems really, really small and, sometimes maybe even petty. How about an actual functional working email address that speaks to who you
Oh
are?
my goodness.
I can't tell you how many
That
times
is so very
that I've
true.
had
So very
someone
true.
with an AOL. Yes, it's still alive and functioning.
Mhm.
A
Yahoo.
Ymail, a Yahoo,
Hmm.
a Gmail even is
Gmail.
considered a no.
Hmm.
My organization name, the Business of Charity at Gmail. No, they want
Yeah.
a domain based email address
And you know what's crazy about that, Patrina, is that nonprofits can get a free
from
email account
Google.
through Google.
From Google.
And it gives them that domain name that they need at
Absolutely.
the end.
Absolutely. And I do know that there have been some changes with Google for nonprofits because I was working with a client and we were looking
Yes.
at different things. So the cost has gone up. Some of them are
Yes.
not free. Some of the services that you probably will
Depending on
want.
space and
Yeah,
storage
all
and
of
all of the
that.
things.
But it
Absolutely.
still starts at $6.
Yeah.
And
That's hard to beat.
exactly. And so, take advantage of that because y'all, my cost for my people has gone up
Yeah.
to like $32 a month per
A
per
chair.
per
A chair.
space. Yeah,
Hmm.
per license. And
Hmm.
so, take advantage of that $6. It gives you a whole lot, but it also gives you credibility
Absolutely.
and validity and being able to apply
It's your
and get a
first
grant.
investment
Ap-
into your
Again, it's
business.
like that introduction. I'm looking at
Yes.
your email address and it tells me a whole lot
A
about how much
lot.
you've invested in the organization. So just because it's free doesn't mean that it's a good thing. And actually, for nonprofits, there are now government grants out there, and it's probably the majority of them. They just haven't said that if you don't have a domain-based email address, you cannot apply.
Wow.
So
Go get that
go get
domain email address today, guys.
absolutely. And it's so
Yes.
simple. So social media, email addresses, all of those things are really, really important. They're looking.
Yeah. And thank you for starting at, that foundational level because, if you don't take care of the small things,
Exactly.
it just gets
You
harder
can't
and harder.
even, add on to the other things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, a lot of us as nonprofit leaders wear many hats.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Even on the for-profit
Yeah,
side for me too, friend. How can leaders recognize when their organization has outgrown its current systems or leadership structure?
When things start falling through the cracks.
That's a
And
good
and this
indicator.
is both, for the nonprofit and like you say, and the for-profit side.
Mm-hmm.
When you drop out an appointment because you're trying to keep it in your calendar and in your head, it's
Mm-hmm.
time for a system that
Oh, for
allows
sure.
you to
It's
capture
bedtime.
that and move forward. And so usually that's where, when your system can no longer function where you need it, you need another step in your process and your system can't give you that, then it's time to start looking for systems that can give you what you need and move out. For those systems who are relying on volunteers and your volunteers are no longer showing up when they can, or the amount of services you're providing outpaces the number of volunteers, it's probably
Mm-hmm.
time to start looking at having an employee. And then
That's a
making
great example.
sure if it's employee versus contractor, all of those different things. Because y'all, I'm just going to tell you, if your person, you tell them what time to be at work and when they can leave, that's not a contractor. That's an
Mm,
employee.
yes, it
And
is.
the
It
IRS
is.
has cracked down really hard on nonprofits about those things.
Very true. Thank you for that actual example
Hmm.
because volunteerism, a lot of us start at that level.
Absolutely.
And that's how our budget speaks to, right?
Absolutely.
But those are some key
Hmm.
indicators to look for when it's time to make that
And begin to
next.
grow and scale.
Hmm.
Hmm.
For sure. Why is compliance just as important as grant readiness? And
Oh my goodness.
how do the two work together?
Hand in hand. So,
Yes.
compliance is literally making sure that all of your foundational infrastructure is in place. So, compliance, when I'm thinking of it, I am thinking from the pre-compliant, from the organizational side of it versus the grant side.
Okay.
So, making sure that your Secretary of State registration is still active.
Step one.
Yeah, your IRS registration is in compliance because
Mm,
some people think if I don't have any income, I don't have to file my tax return.
not the
And if you
truth.
do that for 3 consecutive years, you're automatically revoked. You have to start all over again.
Hmm.
And so that happens quite frequently, more frequently than you would know. And unfortunately, I've even heard some organizations go, well, my attorney told me I didn't need to do that. And I'm like,
What? Your attorney did not tell you that.
no, I think this one actually did.
Are you
I was
serious?
on a call
Oh
with
my
the
goodness.
client and the attorney, and I think the attorney, because here's a little secret, just because they are an attorney, and I have a JD, y'all, so I'm not licensed as an attorney, but I have a JD. So I have my law degree. I just don't practice law, but I
Okay.
give you all my skills, all my information comes from that basis. And so, no, this attorney really did say
Oh
that.
my
So just because they're an
goodness.
attorney doesn't mean they know nonprofits.
That's true.
And so that's the reason why I call myself a nonprofit consultant, because I do a deep dive in understanding how nonprofits not only work and maintain compliance, but also grant writing, how you maintain your funding and keeping yourself in that space. So that's the little things right there. I've had clients who literally said, I need to update my board roster on my Secretary of State. And so that's important too,
Hmm.
because one client called me, he was literally like, they won't give me my check because they said my board roster on the Secretary of State, which he hadn't touched in years, did not match his actual board roster. That's an important thing. Funders are going to
Mm.
look at those to make sure that they are in alignment. And if they are not, because your board is your legal guardian. And so they want to make sure that the people who are on your list are actually also listed on the Secretary of State, and it's an easy fix. So we will
Good to
do
know.
a little bit of a deeper dive into that on the 20th, because that's really, I have seen people lose opportunities. Like, he risked an opportunity. He actually, after that, got funded for $850,000.
Oh wow.
He was like, first time through, and he was like, he came through my coaching sessions, and
Hmm.
he said, I hated it because it was a lot of work.
Yeah, you
I
made
get
him do the
I
work.
gave him homework, and that's what I say. I made He's like, you made me do the work, because that's why I
Hmm.
even kicked one of his board members out because they were sitting there giggling, and I was like, look, gentlemen, if this does not work for you, we're good. And
Right.
he decided not to return, but the executive and the other one did.
Hmm.
And so that's where he was calling me to celebrate. He's like, I just want you to know. He's like, we got the grant. They're in the middle of an audit. He's like, not only did we get the grant, he's like, but it was the first time through. We submitted it,
Amazing.
$850,000. We got it. Now, can I say everyone is going to get that? No,
No, no.
absolutely
But you
not.
can help us make sure we have checks and
So that
balances.
you can get
Yes.
to that level.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That was reason enough to show up on August 20th, guys.
Absolutely.
Check the little things because anything like that could disqualify you. And they haven't even
No,
had a chance to talk to you.
Emma say not only could but will.
They
They will.
will.
They will look at it and go, "Oh, this doesn't line up with what they said over here. We're just going to go ahead and put
And
this to
moving
the
on.
side," and
Mhm.
they won't tell you why.
No
Um,
qualms about it.
yeah, but they
Yeah.
will just move on to the next applicant who has everything ready to go.
And that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You recently wrote many nonprofits don't lack passion, they lack the infrastructure to be grant ready.
Mm.
What are some of the most common infrastructure gaps you see?
Woo,
Just one.
90, 85. I'll come back with about 5%. 85 to 90% of my clients come to me with no budget,
Oh,
or they come to me with a program budget, but they don't realize it's just a program budget. So, you can't even begin looking for money, or you shouldn't begin looking for money until you know how much it costs to actually run your program from top to bottom. Not just the cost that you can afford today and you absolutely will invest in, like your actual services. Most of my clients started serving from the trunk of their car, from their kitchen table, their
mm-hmm.
coffee table, and you're not thinking about, I need directors and officers insurance.
Right.
And so, or if you know about it or you think about it, then you're like, but I don't want to pay for directors and officers insurance. Do you know there are funders who are out there who will not fund you if you do not have D&O?
And
Because
that's
you're a
how responsible
liability.
of them. How
Right.
responsible of them to not fund you.
It is a liability.
It is.
And
It is.
so, with that being the case, those are just some of the things that immediately I'm like, a gap. We need to fill this gap. I understand it's expensive. I know you're self funding, but let's start thinking about how you can fill that gap so that we can then fill this gap and move into being fundable. So, yeah, those probably my budgets are probably my top thing. And again, it does not matter. I work with clients of color, I work with clients of,
You've seen it from
all
us all.
diverse. I work with churches. I've
Yeah.
seen it. It does not matter. There is no one distinct group. It is all true
Yeah.
of young nonprofits. That I get it. You just want to serve, but you have
Mm-hmm.
to put the foundation in there. And a budget is like the first place to start. I used to do budgets, and now I don't do budgets anymore, but I do a
Yeah.
budget consultation
Okay.
so that you understand what should be included in your
Yeah.
budget.
So you saying you don't like to do numbers either?
So here's the crazy part. So here's why I went to law school, so that I didn't have to go.
So you didn't have to do the numbers.
Yeah, so I didn't have to go to the numbers. And then I found myself doing numbers all the time. So go figure.
So now it's just a consultation.
It's a consultation, but we're going to walk through your budget.
Got it. All right. So many organizations spend months searching for grants before evaluating where they're actually ready to receive one. Why do you think that happens?
Because again, they heard that there's just money out there
Just
lying on the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so, they don't understand that you have to evaluate and look at, in the places where you actually need to start. Because maybe we don't need to start with the Houston Endowment, which is a very well-known old organization here in Houston. Instead, we need to start with Walmart. And let's just be frank. And Walmart, I used to not even charge to do Walmart grants. I would give you the information until you go do it yourself, or do it and not charge you because it was just that simple. They've added some steps to it. So, now it's part of those packages that I offer to clients. But again, still being grant ready may mean that we start with the Walmart at $5,000 versus trying to, I had a client one time who wrote to a Texas foundation for $1 million. Before I got to them, before they reached out to me. And so I said, yeah, send me your sample narrative. And he sent me that narrative. And I said, wait a moment. I said, did you really ask them for $1 million? Yeah, he goes, yeah. I said, have you heard from them? He goes, no. He wasn't going to.
No, not in this lifetime. And you know what's funny is that the underlying narrative I'm noticing is that we as nonprofits aren't spending any time with the self-reflection. We're just thinking about the money opportunities that are out there.
Absolutely. Without doing the assessment, like you say, the self-reflection, the self-assessment, looking at your tools, what do you have in place, and then making a determination, where do we start for looking for funding instead of chasing the money. So, guys, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten someone who will send me an email that there was a press release that goes out. Somebody was just awarded X number of dollars, and they send me the press release. And so immediately I go, okay, this means that this is already closed. It's already gone through its cycle, and that they have awarded the money. I can take a look and see when the next cycle may open, but this is not something they're doing right now. And so, just helping people to even understand that little thing, that a press release means that the cycle has been completed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood. So how do leadership, board governance, financial systems, and organizational culture all contribute to becoming a more fundable nonprofit?
They are all interrelated. So New Horizon, I love New Horizon, but one of the things that I told them when they hired me as the executive director, because I had moved to Bay Area Turning Point at that point and had been there for almost 2 years, and watching the culture and knowing the culture because I had worked for them. So when I came in and I interviewed with the board, I said, I'm going to change the culture of this organization if you hire me. If you don't want me to change it, don't hire me. Plain and simple. So they're all interrelated because your culture drives, what funding you're looking for, how much funding you're looking for, what grants do you accept and not accept, because there are some organizations that do not like certain areas of funding. So for instance, if you know that your organization is environmentally friendly, you may not go after a company who's known to have environmental factors or hits on their record. And so, okay, then that means you're not going to apply for this grant, but you will apply for this one. All of that needs to be addressed as part of your organization culture and who and what you will accept.
Mm-hmm.
And that drives your infrastructure as well. What type of accounting system are you using? Are you using the free version of it? Are you using this? Because again, the mindset at the top is sometimes the board will say, well, we just want to go the cheapest route possible because we're a nonprofit. And then you have that forward thinking board that says, no, we want to,
Mm-hmm.
put everything in place, be structured appropriately so we can go after a Houston endowment versus a Walmart grant.
That makes total sense. Also, would make you think: do we have the right people
In
in the right
place.
seats?
I'm going to say this
Yes.
to my founders. I love y'all too. I work with a lot of founders. But the other thing is sometimes the organization grows and you're no longer the right founder or leader for it. And that doesn't mean that you have to step out. You can move into a
Serve in
different
a different
role.
way, right?
Absolutely. But I've seen a couple of really good foundations lately where the founder literally said, it's time for me to shift, and we bring in a new leader that takes us that next place.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really important too. Sometimes to say, you know what, I'm no longer the it person. Let's find the it person.
Yeah. It takes a lot of humility to do that, but it's for the betterment of the
Absolutely.
organization.
Absolutely. Because you want to serve. That's the whole purpose of the
Right,
organization.
right.
Is
Get
to
back to the
serve.
core
You're a
of
public
serving.
charity. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
So, for nonprofit leaders listening today, what's one practical step they could take this week to become more competitive for funding?
Practical step is to make sure to do a checklist. I have a checklist on my website. I will also have one that day.
Okay.
To make sure that you have all those little things in place. A checklist like, do you have a board roster? Do you know where your IRS determination letter is? Because that's a whole thing right there too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have accounting systems in place? This is just kind of a high level overview. Do you have, financial statements in place? All of those things that today you can go and say, hey, do I have these things? The domain based email address.
Yeah.
Do I have these things? Correcting any of those 5 things right there will actually make you more competitive, like by 50%.
That's good to know. Without giving away too much
I
of
know,
your
right?
presentation for August 20th, what can attendees expect to experience at the next Think and Thrive Thursday?
So you're going to get some practical information that will help you go out that day and begin to look for grants that are competitive for where you are in that moment. Because we're checklist, as well as talking about identifying grants eligibility as your core being grant ready. And so those are some things that they can do immediately.
Patrina, I'm so excited and I cannot wait. I feel a little bit leveled up just from this conversation. We hope that you feel the same way. But please come and continue the conversation with us on Thursday, August 20th. We'll be at the Ion right next to the Impact Center from 11 to 1 that day. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And we'll see each other soon.
Yes.
Yes.